Welcome back to Is the Quran True? Part 2. Let's move on. Arthur, what is your second piece of evidence for why the Quran is true?
The Holy Koran contains a huge number of items of scientific knowledge, things that were not known, and could not have been known, 1400 years ago. First, the Koran makes it clear that ants with no wings are all females. And this is true. Wingless ants are all female. Science, though, only recently discovered this. Second, the Koran says that all life is water-based. Scientists didn't know this until 1400 years after the Koran was written. But the Koran knew. And third, the Koran portrays the development of embryos in stunning accuracy, including the fact that embryos develop in stages. But it wasn't until the 16th century, at the earliest, that scientists, quote, discovered this fact. In fact, a few years back, a renowned professor of anatomy and cell biology, in Canada, formerly a disbeliever in the Koran, admitted that he was, quote, astonished by the accuracy of the statements that were recorded in the 7th century AD. It is clear to me, he said, that these statements must have come to Muhammad from God. He went on to say, this proves to me that Muhammad must have been a messenger of God.
Janet, any response?
What a bunch of hogwash. I'll never understand the fetish that many Muslims have with Western scholars and scientists. If one Western kook says something affirming about the Quran, the Muslim world jumps all over that as if it is some important proof. It's weird, is what it is. It speaks to some bizarre insecurity in the Muslim world. By the way, the supposedly renowned scientist whom Arthur referred to, Keith Moore, was taking huge amounts of money from the Saudis at the time he made those statements. When he first said those things, his colleagues were like, what is he talking about? Then they found out he was on the Saudis' payroll, and they stopped scratching their heads.
Janet, you're not addressing Arthur's points.
You're right. Sorry, couldn't help myself there. Anyway, the quote-unquote scientific miracles of the Quran are nothing but an exercise in wishful thinking and eye squinting. You don't see anybody reading the Quran and then having a scientific breakthrough, do you? No, you don't. What you see, at best, is a silly game of catch-up, where science comes up with a breakthrough, and then the believers pretend that the Quran knew it all along. So the Quran said that wingless ants are all females, huh? Let's look at what the Quran actually says. In the Quran, one ant said to the other ants, "Hey ants, get into your underground homes, so that you are not smushed by Solomon's soldiers." And in Arabic, the word ant is generic female. So, because the Quran was written in Arabic, of course it used generic female for ant. And this is supposed to be a convincing proof that the Quran knew winged ants were male, because the male ants could just fly away, and wouldn't need to scurry into their houses. That is supposed to be proof that the Quran knew science before its time? Seriously? There isn't much weaker beer than that. And the claim that the Quran miraculously knew that all life is water-based? Let's see. Muhammad lived in a freaking desert. Everybody knew that if any living thing, human, animal, plants, lacks water, it would die. That is a miracle? Wishful thinking and eye squinting. That's what we've got here. And the idea that the Quran contains an accurate description of how humans develop, what a joke. It's obvious today that we develop in stages, and it was just as obvious back then. To everybody.